Welcome back to Unfiltered Unspoken. You know, this is my favorite part with the intros when I see our guests just smile. So I love it. I love it. Tilley, thank you for tuning in to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we have promised we are going to continue to share life experiences in hopes that your testimony will connect with someone else so that they can start the journey to healing. Tilley, can you come up and tell us a little bit about yourself? And then after you let us know, Sid is going to kick off the first question.
Great. Hi, thank you so much. It's quite a privilege to be here for me. I am a stress and anxiety coach, and I think it can be clear that almost all of us are experiencing stress and or anxiety in some way, shape, or form, especially now that it's so prevalent in the media. Going back even 5 years ago, that wasn't really spoken about a lot back then. I started my journey. I had worked in the corporate world for most of my life in the music industry here in LA. And then I had a daughter. And what happened is kids bring out the parts in you that you need to heal. So I realized that, I was terrified that I was going to mess up her life. And that's what started my journey into becoming a coach and to getting educated on the stress and the anxiety that we all have, and specifically through our nervous system and how we store everything in our bodies. I focus on somatic practices. So it's not just mind. It's not just like talk therapy, which is a very important aspect of anyone's journey or anyone's healing journey. I focus a lot on the body and how we store everything in our body, and that our body is what carries the memories and carries everything within our cells. And healing can only happen when you restore regulation in your nervous system first and foremost. You can't just talk yourself out of an issue. You can't just convince yourself mentally. It does work, but it's mostly temporary. And in a lot of cases, it can make it worse if you're not connecting to your body. So that was a lesson that I knew nothing about when I first started out my education along these lines. But it has been an amazing, and I still am getting educated. I still learn all the time. But my clients that I work with, we work primarily with the body and how to move whatever's stored in our bodies through. And that's how you learn how to heal.
Awesome. Well, wonderful. Thank you for being here with us. Stress and anxiety is something we all deal with. So let's go ahead and get into it. We do always like to start, kind of get a little background on our guests, and kind of understand the trajectory as to how they got to where they are now. So give us a little bit about your growing up. What was your home structure like? Where you experienced stress and anxiety there, or any other traumas in adolescenthood?
I love that. Okay. So I'm in LA. I've been living here for the majority of my life, but I was actually born in South Africa and lived there while I was growing up. It's a very patriarchal society in South Africa. There's obviously, because of the unrest, and I grew up during apartheid. So the unrest of the energy outside and the unrest that you live in led me to not feel safe. Nobody living there back in that time, and now it's improved, but there's still obviously issues. Nobody felt safe. So when you grow up in an environment where your body does not feel safe and you don't feel safe, that gets stored inside your body, and you have to learn how to release that. So, which we're not taught as a culture. We're not taught as a society to learn how to feel safe. Most people don't even know what it ever feels like to feel safe in their body. I didn't until I was way into adulthood. And it took years for me to even understand the concept. So and what's interesting is I left the country and moved here to the States, which was one of the best decisions I've ever made. But I carried that same energy. When you don't deal with your energy that you carry with you, you're just going to create the same situations over and over until you learn how to change that and how to heal. So coming from a patriarchal society where, I remember being so mad at my father. I had 3 brothers, so I was born into a world where it was very male dominated outside of the patriarchy. And I remember I'll give you an example. My dad, he named his company after my first 2 brothers, their first names. And one was old and one was younger than me. And I just remember, because I was a girl, I wasn't included in that, or it wasn't ever thought of that I would be included in any type of working environment or any company, because I was a girl. So when I left, I came to the US, and when I joined the music industry, which is the majority of whatever, I'm not an artist, but I work in the industry. It is was back then one of the most male dominated industries. And I was by far the only female in a lot of areas within the companies that I worked in. So I just reinstated, and it's just the same. I brought that blueprint that I grew up with and just brought it into my life here, even though I was in the United States. So I reinvented it, and you just keep repeating the same patterns until you understand where it's coming from and why, and you can heal that. So, a lot has changed in the music industry. This was going back a while ago, and they've definitely changed their ways. But I had to really take a deep look at my blueprint and how I was creating it. I created that same coming from lack in my relationships too. So I would only choose relationships where I was the person who wore the pants, because I felt like I had a very masculine energy around me, and I brought that masculine energy into every area of my life, including with my job and including with my personal relationships. It was only when I had my daughter that I was watching an episode of Dr. Shefali just randomly on TV on Oprah, Super Soul Sunday. I saw Dr. Shefali, and in that instant, I realized, oh dear, oh no, I am carrying this all with me, and I am completely messing up my daughter's life. And so that made me wake up and start to learn what it is that I needed to do to figure out why I am the way I am. And then once I understood where I was coming from, then only then does that affect my daughter. That it's not me teaching her or anyone around me. Does that affect my relationships? I had to change me first before anything around me changed. So that was the beginning of my coaching days.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So I want to go back. I want to jump back because you said you grew around males dominating, that you felt it was about males. So I wanted to say, being around males, you should have felt safe. So why didn't you feel safe?
Well, that's a great observation. Well, first of all, my father wasn't very safe. We didn't have a consistent life. We often had no money, and then we'd have money. So I was never really in a safe environment. We didn't, we went like this, and we'd have to move all the time because we couldn't afford to stay where we were. And then he'd have a few good years where he made good money. And so then, we were okay. But it was always volatile, as well as, even if he was stable, to be perfectly honest, when you grow up in a country like South Africa, where there is apartheid is happening around you, it's in the energy. So no matter who you are or whose side you're on or where you fit within that environment, it's that is the energy that's carried. So you resonate, your body learns to resonate with that energy when you grow up in that environment. So even if he was stable, it would have taken, his stability would not have been able to offset the environment that I grew up in.
Absolutely. And you said something earlier that has made me remember a tidbit I just learned, where you said that, you kind of grew up in a patriarchal system. There was no expectations of you to be working or running anything. I heard that Gucci, the creator of Gucci, he had 4 children, one of which was a girl, 3 boys. They all worked in the family business. But specifically stated in his will, he left the business to the 3 boys and specifically said a woman would never be running this establishment, still to this day. So that a lot of that stuff is very, ingrained. It's woven in to the fabric of a lot of families.
Yes.
So that's a good point to make. Now, how did I guess with living in South Africa at that time, what was the case of, or the scenario around, you getting out, or did you stay throughout the entirety of apartheid, or what was that like, either leaving or staying during that time?
I left right before the apartheid disintegrated, so I left. It was still apartheid while I was living there, and when I left. And when I first went to the UK, a girlfriend of mine who had been there before me, she paid for my ticket, and I went to the UK. And then I was in Europe for a couple of years before coming to the US. And my goal was only to leave for 1 year and go back. But I just knew that I wanted to see more and understand more, and that took me 2 years to go back. And then when I went back, I just turned around and came right back to the States. So it was something that I felt innately that this is not where I want to stay. And I'm not saying, it's a phenomenal country and the people are amazing. And we visit pretty frequently, and it's always the best time when I visit. But I could feel in my body, and maybe it was the lack of safety that I felt, that I didn't want to be there. So full time, so that's why I came back to the States, and I have been here ever since. And I love it here. I absolutely love it. Oh, Sid, you're on mute. I can't hear you. No, can't hear you, Sid. I can't. Sid's gone, and I can't hear Demetria either. You're also on mute, but you're also back.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay, I love
we got
it
kicked out
because it's unfiltered. This is perfect.
Yes,
This is classic.
I don't know what happened, but something kicked me out.
I don't know either, but we'll pick it up. Now I was saying to you, it sounds like you went, and I just want to make sure you went from South Africa to the UK.
The UK and Europe for a couple of years. I traveled around Europe, and then I came to the US. Yes.
Okay. Then what was that period of time like? Was it the reason why you came to LA, or was it just kind of a moment in your life?
So when I came to the US, I came with my boyfriend at the time, and he lived in Philly. And so I stayed there for a few months. We did. And then we traveled across the US and came into California. And then we just made a selection. We didn't really know. He was American, but we made a selection. Okay, we can choose between San Francisco, LA, or San Diego. And we just thought, oh, let's go to LA. And I remember driving into LA. It was midnight this is a long time ago, driving in. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to die in this place. This is where I'm going to die. So it just felt like it was home to me. And I've been here ever since. And I absolutely love it. So I love it. I feel super grateful every day of my life to be able to live here.
Love it. I want to jump back really quick to your childhood. Would not be feeling safe. Did your brothers ever bully you, or like, did you ever feel like out of place, being dominated by men? Like, was there a push?
I mean, there was a lot of teasing and, but nothing out of the ordinary of siblings, I don't think. It was just that the energy was that you were sort of lesser than as a woman. So we were sort of treated, and I wasn't treated badly. In fact, my dad, I was his favorite, right? He adored me. I was the only girl. But you're still, as a woman, you're treated lesser than. And so you're constantly, I was at least trying to constantly outdo my brothers, because I was a girl. So the expectations were different for me. And I think the vibration of the apartheid world was primarily what made me feel unsafe, which gave all of us felt unsafe. My brothers were great, typical siblings, but it was just that underlying current, right? That you are lesser than, that we felt as women there. And it's improved dramatically, but still there. It's still pretty much there. And it's interesting that you asked, because I don't think everyone would react that way. Some people would be okay with it because that's all they know. There was just something inside me that I just had so much competition against I just couldn't. I was not, or did not fit right with me. I could not stand the fact that I was expected to get married and cook the food and be in the kitchen and have kids. That almost like it wasn't a choice for me. So that's, I think, what made it not worse, but because I still had an amazing childhood, but that did affect me, and it was something that I was definitely affected by.
Absolutely. Now, moving out of the chaos of apartheid, what was your next, I guess, I would assume that is, wasn't the first and last time that you dealt with anxiety and things of that nature. So what was kind of the next big significant moment for you, after leaving South Africa?
So I felt like I was, even when I left South Africa and I came to the US, I was in Europe and I worked, and that was more just traveling, sort of as a young girl. When I came to the US, I still brought with me that same struggling energy in the work environment here. It was different, but it was still, I was battling against working in a male-dominated industry. And for me, one of the challenges I had was that I grew up with the energy of lack around money. And when you grow up coming from a place of lack around money, you most often carry that through. So I carried that energy through with me. And what that means on the money side is that even if you're making a salary or a decent salary, there were times when I was making decent salary, I still never had enough money, because when you come from a place of lack, that is the energy that you're going to attract lack in your life. So for me, I had to shift my entire, how I felt inside of my body, how I perceived everything, and make a shift and realize that I was in fact coming from a place of lack before I could make a dramatic shift, or a dramatic and mostly permanent shift.
Okay. So when did you, I guess going through all of this, being dominated in the male world, home to work, because as we know, it was a male's industry back then, making money and everything. When did you realize that you had anxiety? And I guess this is a
No.
piece that would bring into the anxiety piece in your life. So when did you realize that you had anxiety, and what were some of the signs?
Well, I think that the biggest anxiety for me, even though I was coming from a place of lack and sort of fear in my body, but to me that was normal, right? So that felt normal because I had always sort of been there. So that's the normal for me. I didn't know any different. But when I had my daughter, so she's turning 15 next month, that's when I really entered like, oh dear, because then you're responsible for another human being. So it takes it up a few notches. And so I always had the tendency to be sort of a little nervous ninny, not in terms of being scared to do things, but just an underlying current of not being good enough, being anxious around not being good enough. So that was anxiety that I carried through, and then my anxiety sort of catapulted around when my daughter was born.
Absolutely. Now, were there any, since you were kind of traveling around with a boyfriend and things of that nature, now was that smooth sailing, or did you go through some stuff, country to country, town to town, city
That
to
was
city?
not smooth sailing, and I definitely do not have the boyfriend anymore. Okay, so that's for sure. Uh, no, it was, I mean, it sounds sort of, when you explain it in an overall term, it sounds great. But of course, there was a lot of, there were points where we completely ran out of money, where, we didn't have a place to stay, where there was a lot of hardships along the way. I mean, but when you're sort of younger, you just learn, you're more susceptible to just go with the flow. And you just make it work. Like, that's how you grow, right? But I'm not like, everybody has those type of, everybody's gonna go through phases in their lives where there's sort of hardships, and where they get, they put in situations that are not ideal. And I don't know, you fumble your way through, especially when you're younger, you just really just keep going. So, and you don't really spend the time to sit back and assess what's happening and why it's happening. You just keep going. And overall, when I look back, it was great. Like, on everything I look back, it depends on your attitude, and I choose to look at the positives. But it was, yes, there were some moments and there were some times, but all I remember is the good stuff.
Okay. Okay. Um, so when did you because you get into the coaching with anxiety, when did you realize, I guess that's coming from your background of dealing with anxiety to
Mm-hmm.
help others cope with anxiety?
Mm-hmm. I started off just learning for myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to get an education around why I was so stressed, and then why that stress and anxiety was why it got so much worse when I had my daughter. So I didn't want to be stressed around her, because I didn't want her to be stressed. Well, that didn't work, even though I'm trained. But um, I started off my education on this just for myself. And then when I realized how passionate I was about it, and how, your safety within your body is so important. And I realized, looking back on how I had grown up and how I brought this all through with me, and we all do, and how everything is just stuck in our bodies until we learn how to process it correctly. Then I was like, okay, this is definitely something I really want to do a deep dive into, because this is really something that I'm super interested in. So that's when I made the switch in my career.
And was that a easy transition, or what were some of the difficulties transitioning over into your own venture?
So, before I was a coach, I worked in corporate. And so there's a lot of bad things, but a lot of good things about working in corporate, like a steady paycheck as an example. Whereas when you have your own business, you're sort of on your own, right? So there was a lot at stake for that for me. And I took a risk. Like, you have to take a risk. You can't live your life without risk. So I took a risk. And now as an entrepreneur, like I still have to hustle. Like, we all hustle as entrepreneurs. So, but it's very rewarding, and I'm doing what I really love to do. So it's paid off. Definitely.
Yeah. And I want to jump back into corporate America, because even the music industry I want to know some of the things that you went through in corporate, trying to balance the fight against this. I have my identity in here. What are some of the things that you went through in corporate America, or even the music industry, that made you, I guess, feel like I'm not on the level with the men? Or did you go through any, like, feeling work abuse or harassed? I mean, not mistreated, those type of things.
So I was never mistreated, but what was interesting is that I thought, because I was surrounded by so much masculinity, I thought in order for me to be successful in the corporate environment, I needed to be very masculine, meaning I was very aggressive. I would come into meetings like, even my posture, I was guns a-blazing. I was always fight, argue. Because the masculine, I thought that's how because the people around me that were successful were men, and they had that male energy. So the only way I thought I could be successful was to take on their masculine energy. I mean, we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. And then when I started to do this work and sort of understand how how we react the way that we do, and I learned about the difference between the masculine and the feminine inside all of us, I started to shift and use some of my feminine energy. And when I mean feminine, I don't mean frilly and weak, as a lot of people have that wrong idea. I mean the softer side, the intuitive side, and the creative side. That's all feminine versus the analytical side. You need both. So when I started to use some of my feminine side, I could see a dramatic difference. I remember very distinctly a very clear meeting where I thought it was me and obviously men in the meeting, as was the norm. And I thought, I'm going to try it. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use some of my feminine energy and see how that works. And so I sort of sat back, my posture was back, and I wasn't aggressive, and I listened and I contributed. And the meeting wasn't even for my division. It was for a different division. I was just there as sort of as a consult. And I saw a dramatic shift in the energy, and everybody, the people in the room sort of leaning towards me, wanting to help me and my division. And that sort of became the topic. And I just was sitting back, contributing. Yes. And you still have to have all your ducks in a row, but in a softer manner, where I allowed the flow to happen instead of being aggressive. And that worked so dramatically. It was such a huge shift for me to visually see it happen in front of my eyes, that started my shift towards the feminine, and to be softer and to not come in so anxious and so aggressive, and be on, utilize my feminine side more. That was a major shift for me.
Absolutely. And did you find yourself when trying to take on kind of the persona, that what it felt to be, play on the even playing field, I should say. Were you having any issues with, women trying to keep up with the men in the workplace, or were you able to find that balance? A lot of people, say this and that about having women bosses or women managers. Did any of that cause you to be abrasive to the women that did work under you, or hold them a little bit tighter in that process?
Well, that's interesting because almost everyone that worked under me was a woman, but by the time I had people working under me, I had realized the masculine feminine energy and the difference. And so I worked very well with them because you set an example and you set the bar, and I absolutely I loved all my people that I worked with, and we had the greatest relationship, and we all grew throughout the years, and it was because we had mutual respect for each other, men and women. But when you have that mutual respect and you still know that you need to do your job, but you also have the softer side, the creative, intuitive side, and you can marry them both and you can respect that in other people. I didn't have any issues with women in that sense. And I could see the women that were aggressive, and I could see the women that were more sort of on the meeker side, and learned how to flow together. When I learned about how we store our anxiety and our trauma in our bodies, I could see through their reactions that where they were coming from. And so through mutual respect for their path and my path, I had fabulous colleagues, and it was with women in particular and men, but I loved everyone I worked with. Basically, I was very lucky in that sense. I was always the person that was learning and growing and learning that had to grow, but the people around me were for the most part great.
Okay. So I want to ask really quick, what advice can you give another female that is dealing with an aggressive female at work? Because I know that can be very challenging, because I have been put in that position before. But because you have been on both sides, you may be helpful to someone else.
Yes. So I think one of the biggest things that I learned was that when someone's reaction to you in today's world, so say you speak to someone and you ask someone a question and they yell back at you, they overreact and they get upset with what you've said and they react in a negative way back to you. That response has nothing to do with the current situation. They are responding from something in the past that you've triggered something in the present moment that has brought them back to something that happened in their past. And most of us don't even know what that is, but it's something that's stored in our bodies. And so they're reacting from that place of the past and not in the current moment. It's the same as if you think about this, you think about two people are in the same car accident, right? So two people get in a car crash and one walks away and they feel like sort of, for like a day or two, and then they just brush it off and they carry on with their lives. And the other one walks away and they start to get really ill. A lot of PTSD comes in. It really affects them. They can't stop thinking about it. It really becomes a very prominent part of their life and they can't recover and get over it. So that's the two people experiencing the same situation. The difference between the two is that the one was triggered from something that was stored in their body, and through the accident, it brought that up for them. And so they are now dealing with what has been stuck in their body in the present moment. So when you have an aggressive woman or man or anyone, even your kids can respond to you aggressively, or you respond aggressively, because we're only human. If you know that response is coming from something that's been stored in your body in the past, and you're actually reacting from that experience and not in the current moment, then you can have empathy and sympathy. And if a woman or a man would be aggressive or not treat people well, I learned to have compassion for them because I could see that they were coming from a place that this current situation was triggering for them or activating about something in the past. And so you have a different understanding. Now, it doesn't mean that you let them walk over you and that you let them disrespect you, but you can come from a place of being calm. I would say, okay, that's not how you speak to me. Or, you can still say that. You don't have to sit and tolerate it. But when you understand where it's coming from and why they're reacting that way, or you understand yourself why you're overreacting to something, that it's not really the present moment, it's from the past, then you can have a lot more compassion towards that person and also to yourself.
So I have a really quick follow-up question, because I've dealt with like a lot of work abuse, and I'll be like, you know what, something's wrong with them. They're going through it. But when it becomes a repetitive issue, it's like, what do you do next? Because some people, we know we want to give the empathy or the sympathy, but when it becomes a issue to us, health and mental wise, what do you do next?
Well, you always want to remove yourself from situations where you feel like your soul is being destroyed, right? So if you're in a situation where you're repetitively being sort of, you're spoken to in a bad way, or you feel like you're being attacked repetitively, and even through saying something, you don't want to stay in that situation. You want to, if you can, we don't all have the luxury, right, at all times, but you want to remove yourself from that situation, because people can change, and they can, but they have to really do the work. They have to be able to acknowledge that it's coming from them and that they want to do the work in themselves. But that's not up to you, and you can't help them do it. That's on them. So when I was waiting tables when I was younger, I did work in a very abusive situation at one point, and I had to deal with it for a long period of time until I find another job, because that was my only source of income. This is when I was at university. It was my only source of income. So I had to deal with it for a little bit. I mean, I would push back, but there's only so much you can do. But then I removed myself from that environment.
Absolutely. Now, we know that between men and women, anxiety is probably going to look a little bit differently. Actually, let me back it up. A lot of people maybe don't even know what anxiety actually looks like. Outside of sweating, nail biting, the normal type of stuff. So what other things, or what other kind of symptoms can people recognize or, take note of that anxiety may be a problem?
Well, a lot of my clients that I work with they're the go, right? And they get up and they're go, and they get ready. They gotta run, and they rush out the house. And this used to be me too. And no matter how much time whatever time I woke up in the morning, it was always a rush getting out the house on time with my daughter, getting everybody out the house. And it's that go. We gotta go. We gotta get this, get to work. Okay, you're at work. Go home. Get dinner. That go energy. And what I used to say, and what a lot of my clients say, is that, but that's just how I am. But that's just, I'm always like that. I've always been like that. I'm always this go person. That is, if you look at it on scientific level, there's fight, flight, and freeze in anxiety. And there's a functional freeze, meaning your body, when you push, and you push through, it's called functional freeze. It means your body would like to shut down and slow down, but it can't, because you're pushing and pushing. And what it looks like on the outside is just that you're in go mode, go. But really, you are pushing through your biological body and how your body is in that situation by, well, this is just how I am. I've got to do this. This is what we do. We've got to go. We got to go. It's only when you and that feels normal to you in your body. It's only when you realize when you start to sort of experience what safety does feel like in your body, do you see the difference? That's how it was for me. And that's how it is for a lot of people, because it's like, oh, okay. You still got to get your stuff done. It doesn't mean you become a snail and you just sit on the couch all day, but you do it in a different manner. It's not that frantic go, go, go energy where you're pushing past what your body feels like. So it's a realization. It's a long journey. It's a realization, but yes, that go, go, go. And actually culturally, that's the hustle and grind culture. We admire that. We promote that. We admire people that are on hustle and grow, and we use them as examples, and that's how you should be. And it's not good for your health. It is not good for your anxiety. And it only escalates and gets worse and worse till you get to the point where you will get to the point where you're physically, there will be something physical with you, whether that be severe anxiety, depression, any type of autoimmune illnesses, any type of illness, migraines, all of those are symptoms, IBS, all of those are very common symptoms of you pushing through your anxiety and your stress and keeping going so that eventually it comes out in your body, in symptoms in your body.
Okay. So I have a question. It may sound crazy, but I'm going to ask anyway. Does anxiety create stress? Does stress create depression? And can anxiety create depression or vice versa? Can they trigger each other?
Yes, I do believe that they can all. It's different for everybody because we're such unique and sophisticated organisms, humans. I do believe that there's that all of the above work hand in hand, and one of the three can trigger any of the other three. Stress is sort of in scientific terms, stress can be considered as the fight, flight, and freeze. So the fight, flight is the stress where you're stressed out, you got to get up. And stress can be sometimes good. Like if the old saying is if you're walking in the jungle and a tiger jumps out at you, you want that stress, that adrenaline to run and escape, right? And save yourself. So there's stress where you're on fight, flight. And then the freeze is the anxiety, or the depression, where it's a shutdown, where your body shuts down, where you shut down, where it's too much for us to cope with, become overwhelmed. That's part of the anxiety, when you're overwhelmed. And so, yes, they work all hand in hand, and you can be in one state and bounce to the other and bounce back and forth. There's a window of tolerance, right? So as humans, we have a little bit of stress and then we bring ourselves down, and a little bit you have to have that just to get up in the morning. You have to have a little bit of that fight flight energy, and then you learn how to relax. You'll have a cup of coffee and you relax, or you go to the gym, so you need that energy to work out, and then you go to bed at night, so you bring yourself down. So if you stay within your window of tolerance, you are going to fluctuate up and down. But it's the normalization of that window of tolerance. It's when we spike outside of the window of tolerance. So our stress our get up and go shoots off. Then we hit the anxiety and the depression when it's outside of the window of tolerance. Everybody has their own window of tolerance, and then it spikes outside, and that's when we hit the high stress, the anxiety, and the depression.
Are there any, medical diagnoses that kind of go hand in hand with anxiety, or is there anything that people that are heavily suffering with anxiety are more prone to?
Yes. So the anxiety and the stress and the depression, that's the mental way of dealing with the stress when you're outside of when you're outside of your zone of what you consider, what is normal for you. But it can come in any form, any physical form, any illness, migraines, all autoimmunes, IBS, anything related to your digestion, anything related to chronic illnesses, anything related to allergies, those type of stuff. That's all stems from the base of having a dysregulated system. And so when your system is dysregulated and we don't have the tools to regulate it, then eventually that will manifest into those symptoms that come with those illnesses. So yes, those are directly related to a dysregulated nervous system, which is a system that is either highly stressed or highly anxious.
Okay. And I have another question, because we talk about a lot of folks, and I know sometimes a lot of depression leads into the suicidal piece. So we always try to bring awareness there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what part of, and just clear, because you work around this, what part of guess the stress or the depression pushes you to that piece of feeling like I just don't have any more hope? And what are some ways that can help a person that is going through like these spikes and the jump into depression and sleeping and I guess everything else going on in their life?
That's a great question. So yes, when it becomes overwhelming for you, that means your body is in freeze, right? So anything that's overwhelming, you can't cope with anymore, which leads ultimately to something as bad as could lead something to suicide. But your body is completely shut down. You're so overwhelmed that you don't feel like you can function anymore. And it can show up physically or mentally, or you just can't move anymore in your life. You're just too shut down. So the best thing is, not everybody has the tools how to regulate their nervous system, but what everybody can do without having to pay for someone to help you or get coaching on this, is take tiny little baby steps. That's how I start working with all of my clients. So if you're in a place where you just are so depressed, you can't get off the couch, you can't do anything, you don't want to talk to anyone, you're at that point where you just don't want to do anything anymore. Take one baby tiny step. So maybe that is, instead of closing your eyes and taking a nap or trying to go to sleep, get up and walk around, go outside and walk around the house one time, or your apartment, walk around the inside of your apartment, wherever. So take some small step. If you're extremely stressed and you're like vibrating in this, I'm so stressed, and you think you can't, you get to the point you can't cope with the level of stress, just take a couple of, take a couple of seconds just to feel your feet on the ground, just to feel yourself in your butt in the seat that you're sitting in. Feel the support of the chair against your back. What that does is it starts to give small signals to your body that you are safe. And it's even as small as it can be those small, you can build on those small, tiny little steps that you take. It will lead to eventually your body will start to sense, oh, I can feel safe, even if it's just for a couple of seconds. Your body will start to see that, oh, yes, I can feel safety from this. I'm super depressed, but just for a second, I'm going to go and put my face, I'm going to look outside and let the sunlight go on my retina. So if you make those tiny little steps, those will start to add up, and you will very, very slowly start to put your body in a sense of safety, or at least your body is aware that it can feel safe. And that's how to sort of regulate your system and to bring yourself back into that window of tolerance. People think, oh, well, that's just a waste. Like waking up in the morning, I try to tell my daughter, before you go on your electronics, just look. Even if you just look outside for 30 seconds, you don't realize what a difference that makes on your body. So it's just these little steps that you can take that can help. And some people go to extremes. They start, oh my gosh, I got to meditate every day. I've got to do cold plunging. I've got to do all this breath work. And any modality is very helpful and needed. But if you don't start from a regulated nervous system, you can, in effect, actually make your symptoms worse. Because if you're forcing yourself to breathe a certain way or to meditate, a lot of people are like, I just can't meditate. And they force themselves to sit. You're actually shutting down what your body is naturally feeling. So you could suppress it even more and make it worse.
It's good information. Now, for those viewers that we may have, as we know, these days it seems like health insurance is a luxury. not a basic necessity or something that everybody has. So in your opinion, what are a couple of ways to assist with regulating your nervous system, or overcoming an anxiety attack, or things in that plane? What are some tips to work past it if you are not able to seek counsel or a medical professional for these issues?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, because you're right. It's really a luxury, especially when it comes to therapy and coaching along those lines. So for me, you want to learn to find safety in your environment, starting with nature. Nature makes everybody feel safe. And even if that means there is no nature around you, look at a plant or a picture of a plant. That nature brings your body, it levels your body energy out. It's something that it just does. Finding a place or situations where you feel safe with something as simple as your feet on the ground, feeling the support of your bed when you're lying on your bed. Think about the support, how your body's supported. Look around the room and find something that's familiar to you. Okay, well, I look at that painting over there, and I know that, that painting is part of my house. I'm safe here. Look around, find small things that make you safe, feel safe in small bits. It doesn't have to be a lot, and do that repeatedly throughout the day. So what I used to do in the beginning is I would set my alarm for every hour on the hour. And it was 5 minutes before the hour. And this is while I was at work. And then the alarm would go off and it would remind me okay, I need to orient. It's called orienting and resourcing, which leads to safety within your body. So orient to, where am I right now? Okay, I can feel my feet in my shoes. Even if I was walking around, I can feel my clothes on me. I can look around. I can see the sky outside. Okay, I see the sky. I see the plants. Back in my office, okay, I'm at my desk. I can feel my hands on the top of my desk. The familiarity. If you're at home, look around the room. Just look up. Even if you're on your bed, look up at the ceiling. Can you see the ceiling? Can you see a light fixture that you're familiar with? When you resource to the space around you and orient to where you are in the present moment, again, that creates that safety within your body. And you don't need anyone to walk you through that. Everyone and anyone can do that. And the more you do it on a repetitive basis, and it doesn't have to be for a long period of time. People don't have a lot of time. So just do small increments and work on that. It's way more beneficial to do 3 or 4 times a day, a 30-second, resourcing exercise where you just feel your feet on the ground, than to try to lump in a meditation for 15 minutes. So try to do that throughout the day, and those little bits start to resonate within your body and build safety within your body.
Perfect. So we chatted. We're almost at time. And I'll go, then Sid will go. I want to ask, can you give the audience, and thank you so much for the information. I want to say that as well before I finish, because I'm going to try some of your suggestions, because you just made me realize that I need to do a little bit more. Can you give the audience some advice on what helped you heal through going through anxiety, stress, or depression, and the conscious of the mind to help them through that. We try to make it transparent just to say, hey, these are some ways that help me. Maybe they can help you.
Mm-hmm. So I tried almost every modality that they have out there. I just tried everything. And a lot of the stuff like the breath work, and it changed my life, and the meditation, it was really very, very helpful. But what I found was it sort of came around, and healing is cyclical, right? And you can't heal and then you're healed forever. Like stuff, it opens up the chute for new stuff to come about. But I found with using those modalities that it was very temporary, my healing. And I wasn't able to stick with them because eventually I'd go back to how I was prior. So after a year of doing some of these modalities, I would be back at where I was a year ago. It was only when I really started the very simplification of making your body feel safe and understanding why your body is reacting the way it is, that's when I really went through the true healing. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to always be healing. Everybody is always healing. But when you learn how to feel safe in your body, that's the foundation. Without that safety, it's like building a house without a foundation. Like you can try and put everything together and throw all this fancy stuff together, but if you don't have that foundation of creating safety within your body, it's not going to last. It's going to be unstable. So just starting with the basics, which is the resourcing, which is, familiarizing yourself with surroundings, the orienting, how you feel. Well, how do your feet feel? How does your head feel? How does your clothes feel? How is your body feeling right now? When you start to do those and form a safety in your body. Another thing, how I know that I do it. So I used to be and I still am one of those people that I'll watch a commercial and it'll make me cry, right? I look at a picture of my daughter when she was a baby and it makes me cry. It brings up all these emotions. When that starts to happen, I'll be watching a movie and I'll start to feel myself, oh my goodness, I'm going to start crying. If I just then right there and then and there, I orient, I feel the couch underneath me. I feel where my feet are. I feel the support that my back is. When I start, and it immediately brings safety into my body. And I'm not so emotional. And I'm not saying that the emotions are bad. Crying is an amazing healing technique. And we should release all of our emotions. But I establish a point of safety in my body in order to release those emotions. So it goes back to just the safety in your body and doing the simplest, smallest things on a repeated basis. And you will start to then what you do is your body builds the capacity to heal. Your body will only bring you stuff that they know you're capable of healing with. So when you build that groundwork and you build that safety, your body will then, stuff will start coming to you, but you'll be able to deal with them. You'll be able to handle the stresses, you handle the anxieties, handle the illnesses on a better level because you're coming from a place of safety or a regulated nervous system.
Well, thank you so much for those wonderful tidbits. So we are at the point of our show that we like to call shameless plug. You see all of your information scrolling down at the bottom. Please let our viewers know how they can contact you, utilize their services, anything that you have for sale, anything you want to draw traffic to. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I have, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Tilley Fine on both. And I'm sort of on TikTok, but I don't really post that much. And my website is www.tilleyfine.com. And I do some group work, and I do a lot of consultations. I do a lot of speaking engagements, but I do one-on-one clients, and I feel that that's the most effective way to help people. I am currently open to new clients right now. I have room in my schedule for new clients. So that would mean, working out a package that suits the client, where we would come up with a healing strategy to cope with their anxieties, their fears, and build a plan, a customized plan. So reach me on any of my of those socials. And there's also some free resources that I offer on also all of my socials through my link tree, where there's the 7 steps to regulation and things that people could start working with, that they could start to see a difference if they practice it on a regular basis.
Thank you, Tilley. We really appreciate it. Thank you for being a guest on Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we're going to continue to share life experiences in hopes that someone will connect to start the journey to healing. And I want the audience to know, if you have been watching, if you're going through stress, anxiety, depression, anything that regulates the self-conscious of the mind, know that you are in control and you can put yourself at a place to feel safe. And this was the point of this whole entire conversation, because I know that probably a lot of us don't feel safe within our own space. So, Tilley, thank you so much for bringing so much informative information to share with the audience.
So much for having me. It's been great and really good in-depth questions. I love it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And we want to let you know, thank you for tuning in to Unfiltered Unspoken, where we're going to continue to share life experiences. Ain't that right, Sid? Y'all have a blessed day. We will see you soon.
Bye.